Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas, and I hope everyone's getting ready for a great New Year. And this video is going to be very short. I'm going to keep this under 10 minutes, I promise. I know the holidays are a hectic time, and this week we're not going to be traveling. I'm just doing a field repair of the leak that was in my dinghy that I've talked about in previous episodes. So we stayed in Prince Creek for a week, and it was time to get Frank repaired so he wouldn't keep losing air and we could feel a little more comfortable about using him regularly. So we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. During this episode, you'll probably hear Hanwi upstairs talking a little bit. She's angry with me right now. This morning we went to the beach and they found some mud, so I had to do an undercarriage wash on them and they're soaking wet. So she's upstairs right now until she dries out, and she's not happy about it. So you'll probably hear her chattering, but she's not dying. She's just angry with me. So yeah, the first thing we had to do was to get Beans off of Frank and get Beans back on the deck. Now, there was nowhere I could take the dinghy in Prince Creek, like a beach or anything, to do the repair, and I wouldn't have been able to do it on the beach anyways, just because it takes, 24 hours for the glue to cure and that kind of stuff. So I really needed to do it on the deck of the boat. And it is a 12-foot dinghy, and the front of the boat, obviously, we've got the cabin there, so it's not level, which made everything a little more complex. So I needed to get Beans off of Frank, and then I needed to get Frank up on the deck so I could find out where the hole was and get it patched. I had previously located one hole in the dinghy, and the dinghy is made of Hypalon. It's not a PVC dinghy, so it's a little trickier to patch. And I figured since I had to take it out of the water, I would take the entire thing apart and look for more leaks. I didn't know if there was more than one hole or not. And whoever designed these segmented floors, they really should go to hell. Okay, that's a bit strong. Maybe not hell, but they should go to purgatory for, 10 or 15 million years, something like that, to pay back the pain that is a segmented floor. Now, if you're on a flat surface, it's no problem. It's still a problem. They're a pain in the ass, but it's doable on a flat surface. On a crooked surface on the boat, it was impossible. I did eventually get the floor out, but I wasn't able to get it back in, but that's a problem for later. But after I got the floor out, I did soap down the entire boat. I didn't have a sprayer, so I had soapy water, and then I rubbed soap on other parts, and then I'd wet it down with the deck wash. So I did check for other leaks, and there was just the one that I knew about. I had located that earlier, and so I didn't even need to take the floor out, but I figured it was better safe than sorry. After I located the puncture, I repositioned the boat so the puncture was on a flat surface, and I had to prepare the area. Now you can see where there's some black adhesive there. When I had found that hole early one morning, I tried to put a piece of tape over it, and I actually missed I missed the hole with the tape, so no wonder it kept deflating. Not that the tape would have helped a ton, but I figured it would have slowed the leak. But anyway, when I removed that tape, it did leave a bunch of adhesive behind. It was a Gorilla tape, so it's kind of a nasty, tarry thing. But I did have some goof off that I used to clean the surface and get as much of that old adhesive out of the area I was going to patch. Now, I did read the instructions for the patch kit. I just used the patch kit that came with the dinghy, and it said for small holes to use a 3x3 patch, so that's what I did. And I also had to sand the area. So Hypalon is very durable, and to get it to adhere the patch to the old Hypalon, or the original, the dinghy itself, you do have to sand the area. And the sandpaper came with it, but it's a very coarse grit. I would say it's a 60 or an 80 grit, and I did sand it very aggressively, not super aggressively. I didn't have like a sanding block and go to town on it, but I did sand both the patch and the dinghy very aggressively to get a good roughed up surface so the glue would be able to adhere between the two. After I got the area prepped, I went ahead and taped off the area where the patch would be applied, and that's where I knew where to put my adhesive. I didn't want to get glue slopped outside of the area because I was going to be using, the only thing I could find was a bread pan full of chain. That was the heaviest thing that I could find that was flat on the boat. So I was going to use a bread pan filled with anchor chain to put on top of the patch after I got the patch affixed in place. So I didn't want to get glue outside of that area because I didn't want to glue my bread pan to the outside of the dinghy. So that's what I did. And after I got the area taped off, I went ahead and started to apply the adhesive. Now the instructions that came with this adhesive was to apply one coat, and I used like a tongue depressor. They're like mixing sticks for small volume. I've got stir sticks, you know, I've basically got a hardware store on board, and so I just used a little tongue depressor type paddle to spread the glue around, or the adhesive. You could probably use a small brush. You could use just about anything. Paper towel if you had to. So I put on one coat of the glue, I waited 5 minutes, I put on another coat of the glue, I waited 5 minutes, put on a third coat of the glue. Then after the third coat was allowed to sit for 5 minutes, I went ahead and affixed the patch. Now it said you're supposed to put the patch on and press it firm with a roller, but obviously I didn't have a small roller. So I just pressed it in place and tried to get all the air bubbles out as well as I could just with my hands. Now, one thing that I wish I would have done differently is on this patch, one of the corners was rounded, and that was on the patch itself. The patch kit, you know, had rounded corners. And when I cut out the patch, I really should have rounded the other three corners. I think it would have made the patch harder to snag on something. You know, with those sharp corners, something could get caught under there. It's just a small thing, but I wish I would have rounded the corners on all sides of the patch. But it's in an out of the way area that really doesn't get much wear, which makes me wonder how it got a puncture. I think it might have been a dog claw, so I'm keeping a closer eye on that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I put the patch on there, and then I put put a layer of paper towel in between the bread pan and the patch, just in case any glue got outside of that area. And then I waited 24 hours, and I pumped Frank back up, and Frank held air. Now, I wasn't able to get the floor back in on an uneven surface. It was just a nightmare. So I finally gave up after about an hour and a half of swearing and trying to get the floor back in. And we just dragged Frank and Beans behind. And once we got to Beaufort, South Carolina, which was just a couple days down the road, there was a boat ramp that I could take Frank and Beans over to. Then I disassembled Frank and Beans entirely again. You know, I was on a flat surface on land, so I could put the floor back in properly and get everything put back together. And then since then, Frank has held air perfectly. There have been no other leaks, and life is good. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotten, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.